Councilmember Bruce Conque is here with us this
Good
morning.
morning.
Hi.
And, are you recovering? Are you? What's happening?
Recovering from last night, just recovering health-wise.
A rough board meeting last night?
A little bit
meeting?
of both. It was a rather lengthy meeting, and the issue about the monitoring of speeds in school zones specifically and exclusively took up quite a bit of time. And the Robideau administration basically was trying to get a read on the council as to how to proceed.
Yeah.
He just wanted a resolution of support as to whether or not he should enter into negotiations with two vendors, ATS and Redflex, to monitor speeding in school zones, specific exclusively.
Yeah.
And the final vote was 6-2. We had one member absent. Extensive conversation about whether or not there is indeed a concern for safety in the school zones.
Yeah.
And one council member cited data saying, well, we've never had a serious accident or a fatality in a school zone. Well, the comeback on that was preventive action. Just like anything else, if you put in place some type of a monitoring system that folks are aware of, that perhaps will make them more conscious that they're in a school zone, that they're supposed to be doing 25 instead of 40, and just operate as you would out of concern for the safety of everyone, not just the folks, the students and the teachers, but everyone within that zone.
A lot of the feedback we've gotten today has been specifically that Redflex came up again, and it seems like, we had our problems with Redflex here. We don't have Redflex anymore. And I think a lot of people look to the problems they've had across the nation in some different cities. Is that a concern you have?
I have the dubious distinction of having voted in, I think it was 2006, to put the traffic monitoring operations into the place in Lafayette. At that time, we wanted to accomplish a couple of things. One, we wanted to address safety. And the other, coming out of that, the other concern we had is it was never to be considered a recurring revenue. Well, what happened there, it didn't become a recurring revenue because we weren't collecting. Yeah. And if you're not collecting revenue, it's not going to be considered a revenue source to fund the city's needs. One of the things that we addressed last night, and Mayor Robideau was very specific, is that they have apparently identified a method where there will be a consequence to receiving a citation. And I use the word citation very carefully because it is a civil violation, not a criminal. If you are caught speeding by a police officer, that's a criminal. That's a moving violation. That goes against your insurance record. This can only be classified as a civil violation. And we had a horrible record in collecting. It had nothing to do with Redflex specifically. It was the political will to make it happen. There were some political decisions made over since 2006 where there was no political courage displayed to follow through on those people who were refusing to pay for the citations. And in my mind, that was unfair.
So is it a safety thing or is it a revenue thing?
In my mind, it should be a safety thing.
Yeah.
Last night I heard comments which I considered a little bit disturbing that it should be considered a revenue thing. I stick to my argument, it's a safety issue.
So if we had gone after all those people that owed all that money,
millions,
would it have been worth it? Could we financially have afforded that, though?
Financially afforded what?
So, let's say somebody had a civil fine of $100 for, they ran a red light a few times or whatever, and they never paid them. Wouldn't it cost us more, to file in court and have a lawyer spend his time on that?
That's all built into the eventual fine that's paid.
I'm just curious what happens going forward.
And it came up last night. The way the contracts have been designed in the past, and I'm assuming will be in the future, is that there is no cost to the city of Lafayette. There's no cost to the city of Lafayette to put in the hardware, to do the monitoring, okay? There's no cost to pursue collections of people who refuse to pay. That's all built into the contract as a cost of doing business to the vendor. And yet we continue to collect whatever percentage is ours, 60% or whatever. So there's really no cost incurred on our end. It's of great benefit to us in terms of revenue and hopefully in safety.
Okay.
So here's my other philosophy question for you, because I've kind of been curious about this too, because I know how I feel about it, but I've also heard people talk all over the spectrum on this issue. The reason we raise tobacco prices is to get people, well, there's a variety of different reasons, right? They call it a sin tax. So some people are way okay with taxing people who buy a pack of cigarettes because in their minds, hey, I don't smoke. Only a fifth of us smoke. Let them pay for children's health care. And then we want to sometimes raise the tax on beer and wine and other spirits. And some people are, okay, that's a sin tax. Let's do it. So in my mind, philosophically, I'd rather somebody pay for stuff that we have to do in our government because they speed in a school zone than me, because I just happen to not speed, right?
And the term that's applicable is a violation.
Yeah. So does that change for you politically when you put it in that perspective? And do you think it would change for other people? I mean, there's been such a raging debate all these years. But then when I started thinking about it from that standpoint, I was like, well, I don't smoke anymore, so I don't even have to worry about how much it costs for a pack of cigarettes. I don't know. I was just wondering what you thought.
And look, what you're talking about, the sin taxes, we could go into an argument and a conversation and go on forever because I've been studying the court system. Mm-hmm. A lot of our services within the parish and the city of Lafayette are supported by people who pay the additional fees attached to fines for whatever, drunk driving or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's not fair. Why should they have to bear that particular burden? Mm-hmm. That's an expense that benefits all the parish of Lafayette. Mm-hmm. Our system, in terms of generating revenue, really needs to be revisited. Mm-hmm. It'd be great if we go back to square one.
When you want a criminal to have to pay that, though?
What's that?
When you want to have a criminal have to pay that, though, or you say it's unfair?
Well, for example, in city court in Lafayette, or actually in any city court in the state of Louisiana, whether or not you have a violation that incurs the services of the Acadiana Crime Lab, there will be a fee attached to your fine.
I see. Okay.
But the Acadiana Crime Lab benefits all residents of this region.
That's very true.
But the people who pay for it are the ones who can, in many cases, at least afford it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. I think it's obviously just the beginning of the debate. You said when we started this.
It's a long conversation.
Yeah, I was about to say kind of a way to gauge kind of what the interest would be and where it would be.
Yeah.
I do think that those crime stats are going to be something interesting. And then you're always going to have someone who says, do we go with a third-party company? Would it make more sense for us to put out the money on the front end and then own the cameras themselves?
My argument is, why go that direction when you can get into the business of doing that with no upfront cost?
All right.
Great conversation.
Lafayette Consolidated.
Great
By the way,
conversation.
one quick observation that we have to be very aware of as we move forward. I know people become weary of hearing this. The parish of Lafayette is in a financial crisis. We had a report last night that our property taxes are down, our sales taxes are down, the lowest in years. And yet the services required by our constituency remain, and the expenses associated with that are incurred. So it's a big, big issue, and it's going to be reviewed at a summit we have on March 28th as to how do we move forward. And this is a parish issue.
Right. Yeah. You're right. So it involves all of us. It affects all of us.
We all pay parish taxes.
Yeah. What about annexing? You think we should just split them all off and annex the areas?
And that's a popular
popular thought.
When you pick up a piece of an unincorporated area, if it does not include a retail area, there's no sales tax.
Right.
If you pick up residential properties, they get $75,000 homestead exemption on their property. So you don't increase the revenue, but certainly you have to provide police and fire and everything associated with what people expect if they're going to be part of the city of Lafayette.
Okay, let's try to get you back about a week and a half before that summit, and maybe let's talk a little bit more about it, because it's fascinating. And,
well, it's kind of like the local microcosm of the statewide issue.
It really is.
Really. The difference is here, locally, the constituency drives the issue. In Baton Rouge, the legislature makes the decision on whether or not to impose a tax. We can't do that. That has to go to the voters.
And it's such an anti-tax sentiment by most people.
Really? I hadn't figured that one out.
You're cute.
Thanks for coming by. We'll have you
back again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
It's 8:25 now.